Hi, it's Michael from Culture Talk and Tours, and I'm here today in Cambodia, still in Cambodia, Phnom Penh. I'm here with another Canadian. This is Chef Michael Pataran.
Yeah.
Now, again, we've met because I came here to your wife's spa, Indigo Spa, for a facial. Found out she was Canadian, found out you're Canadian.
Yeah.
Now, where in Canada are you from?
Born and raised in Toronto.
Toronto, Canada.
Yeah. So I've been living there pretty much up until my late 30s.
Right.
Traveling in and out, but that's
Right.
where my home base. So I'm one of the few people that was born and raised there.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And how did you get into cooking?
Parents owned restaurants and nightclubs growing up.
Oh, wow.
So they had they had a really historic property right up front in Jarvis.
Okay.
On the kitty corner of the St. Lawrence Market.
Okay.
Back in the day. So they used to have restaurants and pubs on that corner. All the hockey players from the Maple Leafs back in the 70s used to come there. Daryl Sittler, Boreal Salming. Frank Sinatra used to come there, like a lot of the high-profile actors back in the day.
Wow.
So I kind of just fell into it. I always say that I didn't choose the restaurant industry. It kind of chose me.
Right.
Yeah, it was like a natural path.
So you grew up helping out in these restaurants?
Yeah, grew out helping out when I was a young kid. I used to go by when I was still in public school even.
Right.
Grades 6, 7, 8. My dad would take me by on the weekends and I'd see the chef and everything they're cooking. And then later on we had a family restaurant when I was around 18, 19, just kind of in between high school and university.
Right.
And then I worked there,
Right.
waitering, doing some bartending and stuff like that. Still always into the cooking side.
Right.
But that's when I started to travel around that time.
Right. And did you go to school for cooking?
I went in Australia
Okay.
to cooking school there. It was a correspondent-based school out of Brisbane.
Wow.
And I did like one semester there term. But I grew up cooking in this industry.
Yes.
And it's really funny. Like I never really look at cooking school as your basic foundation.
Yes.
But I've met so many people that have gone to cooking school that are not good cooks or good chefs.
Right.
And I've met a lot of people that have never been to cooking school and they're just fantastic because they have a passion for it.
Right.
It's good just to kind of get your chops and go to cooking school and get the basics. It gives you the foundation, but it's up to you to build upon that in the years after.
And you have to have more than just a talent. You have to have kind of a sense.
You need to have a knack for it.
Yeah, and this is going to go and this together. And
it's like anything. Like, you can practice, if you're an athlete, you can practice 6 hours a day. If you don't have the natural talent, you're not going to be a good athlete.
No.
And some of the great athletes just never practice, or you don't need to because they have that raw talent.
And they just do it.
Yeah, and I think any profession can be like that, but cooking's definitely like that.
Right.
Sometimes you just have an affinity for number one, you need a good palate.
Right.
If you don't have a good palate, you're in trouble from the start.
Right.
But I mean, if you have the good palate, that's kind of where you start from. But you need to just be able to understand food, processes, and how certain ingredients have an affinity for each other.
Right.
And when you can understand that, then you're kind of off to the races.
Right. And then after you did this time in Australia, how long was it?
About a year and a half.
How long? And then you were into the Bahamas?
No. And then I came back to Toronto.
Right.
Worked in restaurants, in Italian restaurants for some really good chefs, and then I got into the Asian scene, which I got into in Australia.
Right.
And I started working in really good Asian restaurants back in Toronto, and that's when I started to hit the executive chef level, sous chef, executive chef level.
Right.
And that would have been going back to, 1997, I think 98, around that time.
Right.
And then I ended up meeting a guy who was kind of like my mentor in this business, an Austrian fellow named Ivan von Feudel.
Right.
And there used to be a resort called Muskoka Sands up at Muskoka. I don't know if you know Muskoka.
Yes, I do.
And it was changed to Taboo.
Right.
So Taboo Resort Golf and Spa was a championship golf course, Mike Weir's home course.
Right.
Who of course won the Masters, which was huge.
This is all Canadian stuff.
All Canadian content. And then so he kind of had this vision for this resort to be a worldly resort.
Right.
And through him, we ended up traveling to the States and going to Miami, going to New York, and doing parties in the Hamptons in New York and the governor's mansion in Virginia.
Right.
All these store openings in New York City and stuff like that. So he was kind of the one that kind of launched me into that realm.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've also been very successful wherever you've been. Your wife was saying you were in the Maldives, and
yeah, I've been really lucky to travel. You know, when I was much younger, I spent time in Mexico quite
right.
often.
Where in Mexico?
Basically in the Yucatan,
right.
That whole region, in Oaxaca,
right. Yes.
the foundation of Mexican cuisine.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and so I just had an affinity for traveling. I love to go and travel and experience food that way.
Right.
There's only so much you can read in a book.
Right.
But then, yeah, as I started to travel, I went to different countries and worked abroad. Worked in the Maldives for a year, worked in Indonesia for 2 years, worked back in Canada, and all at boutique luxury small resorts.
Right.
Kind of, 25 to 35 villas.
Right.
Very high profile cuisine.
Right.
And that's kind of been what I've been doing for
right.
the last 15, 20 years.
Okay. Now the kind of tabloid question that everyone wants to know, any famous people that you've cooked for that have stuck out?
Oh, lots of people.
Yeah.
Tons of people. Like I worked at a restaurant in Toronto called Rain.
Yes.
I was executive chef there, which was it was one of the first really sleek Asian kind of lounges, like of a New York kind.
Right.
In Toronto. It was on Mercer Street.
Right.
Where Mercer Street was.
Yes.
And we used to have, you name it, like everybody from Hollywood used to come in there.
Especially for like TIFF and...
Yeah, especially for TIFF. And then I worked at Windsor Arms
right.
Hotel,
wow.
Which was TIFF Central.
Yes.
So when TIFF was happening, that hotel was Hollywood.
Right.
Like everybody came in
It's
there.
crazy.
You'd have the Prince, you'd have Halle Berry, you'd have Mickey Rourke, you had like everybody used to stay
yes.
there all the time.
And TIFF is the Toronto International Film Festival. It's September...
I think it's September 18th to 28th or something
yes.
like that. It changes a little bit every year.
I used to have a friend who did publicity, so I used to, in university, I'd always get a press pass. And yes, everyone is there.
And it's one of the biggest film festivals in the world now.
Yes.
It's been going for like, I think, 30-something years.
Yes.
It's crazy.
So everyone's there.
Yeah.
And then you're there, so you're cooking for them.
Yeah. I never really got hung up and goo-goo over people. I remember Sean Connery came to our restaurant in the Bahamas.
Right.
I think that's the one time
right.
that I kind of really, because I just, with Sean Connery.
Yeah, it's the original.
Yeah, it was
007.
007. But
yeah,
there's
the
been,
original.
Whether you cook for someone famous or cook for just regular, it's the satisfaction. That's what gets you. Like it's not who you cook for. It's how the person reacts.
Right.
For me, anyway.
And that whole street, like from the Hyatt to the Four Seasons, the old Four Seasons.
Yeah. That Yorkville area.
That Yorkville area is just
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy in September. So if you want to see celebrities,
that's a good place to be.
That's a good place to be. Now the other side of this whole being a chef thing, and I've worked in restaurants in high school and university, is the whole, I find that some kind of more outgoing or mean chefs are getting the spotlight now. You've got like the Gordon Ramsays.
Yeah, and it's funny. I had this conversation with Sarah and Adam. Back in the day, to get press and publicity, you had to do something really good. Like I'm talking back in the 90s before social media kind of exploded.
Right.
In order to get into Toronto Life magazine, which was the magazine of the time, you had to be doing something extraordinary.
Right.
Nowadays, you don't really need to be. You can be doing mediocre cuisine and you can be getting more press than anybody because you have people that are doing this social kit, this press media for you.
Right.
They know how to do it. They know how to pump.
Right.
It's not necessarily the best restaurants getting the most press anymore. It's just the ones that are good at it.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate.
Right.
There's the whole the blogger scene took off and the influencer scene took off. So you're getting a lot of these people that are, for one reason or another, promoting certain restaurants over another just because of this.
Right.
And I mean, it's changed the whole stage. It's just made it much, much different.
And it's not always what is the best food.
No.
Your wife and I were talking that I've done restaurant openings before, and it's always people that I want to work with and I know are good beforehand.
Yeah.
So it's not likely that I'm going to say, "Ooh, I didn't like that," because I usually do. But at the same time, it's not because they were dropping the F-bomb somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I've worked in a lot of restaurants, and I would actually not go to your place if I see you treating your staff that way.
Yeah, the scene has changed a lot, obviously, since the 90s. and going back even further, like when you go back to the 80s and before, there was no such thing as HR, number one.
Yeah.
And so, usually it was the owner that was dealing with any issues. So if the owner was the one that was doing the abuse, he was the one you were complaining to. So it kind of died there.
Yeah.
Later on, and again, through social media, because you could get it out there, it just stopped being that way.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore.
No.
It's really hard. Like, I was on the cusp of that. So I worked for some chefs that were very vocal.
Right.
I worked for an Italian signora that was extremely vocal.
Right.
I was more growing up in my late 20s and early 30s,
right.
a little bit more.
Right.
But now I'm not, because it's just the youth, the kids have changed.
Yeah.
Back then the kids could take it because
right.
that was expected, but now
right.
if you do it, it's just, A, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
B, people are going to find out about it, like you said,
yeah.
and they're not going to want to associate with you,
yeah.
and they're not going to want to work for you because
yeah.
word gets around that this
yeah.
guy's abusive, and you're not going to find staff.
And I get that it's a stressful environment.
Very.
You've got heat, and you want,
yeah.
you've got pressure. You want to be.
It's the only business that I've said is right. Like, it's now.
Yeah.
Like, you can't wait. Anything else, like if you're trying to get like a lawyer to do something for you, or your car's in the shop or something.
Yeah.
It's like, you have to wait.
Yeah.
When people go to a restaurant, it's like you need it now.
Yeah.
No one's going to wait an extra 20, 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It's now.
And
so the stress level is incredibly hard, and a lot of people can't take it. So
no.
they kind of flunk out and
yeah.
just quit and choose another career.
Right.
But I had a really good friend of mine that always used to say that I work with. He says a kitchen is where a construction site meets prison.
Right.
And that's kind of where it is.
Yeah.
Because you have to have a certain type of mentality to thrive.
Right.
In that kitchen. Like you said, it's very hot, the pressure's high.
Yes.
There can be a lot of shit talk happening
right.
in terms of what's going on in the kitchen. You need to have thick skin.
Right.
And you need to be able to work under those conditions. And
right.
a lot of people, most people, including customers that come into restaurants, 90% of people could not hack it working in a restaurant.
No. And also with food, it's ready now,
yeah.
so you need to deliver it now.
Yeah, because that's the best the dish will ever be.
Yeah.
when it's sitting in the past.
Yeah, order up.
It starts going down.
Yeah.
From there.
So deliver it.
Yeah.
Get it there as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So along with that question is, I kind of gravitate with like the Jamie Olivers, who are doing stuff, whether it's to get into a supermarket, I don't care. But his whole program where he was investigating the school lunches
yeah.
and trying to work in veg and, really kind of tackling a culture, not just, and of course he's done very well for himself and he has restaurants everywhere. But I like his personality better. I like enthusiasm and I like passion. And that old guy that he works with, that old Italian guy that was his mentor. And, I think there's a 40-year age gap, but they act like they're bickering brothers or something, And I kind of more gravitate to that type of chef,
Yeah, I there's certain chefs I follow, not as much as the younger generation. A lot of the chefs that I follow aren't particularly incredibly famous.
Right.
I just admire what they do and their dedication to the craft.
Right. I'm just thinking of the two Brits that are out in the...
Well, Gordon Ramsay's the other one.
Yeah, well that's what I'm saying.
Marco Pierre White, of course, who was the original.
Yeah, but if you've got Gordon Ramsay and you've got Jamie Oliver, like, I'm going to go to Jamie.
Yeah, Gordon Ramsay's a show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he puts an act on. He's not like that in real life.
No.
He does it for the ratings, and it makes him a living.
Yeah.
Jamie Oliver came from a different background as well.
Right.
He was in the cooking side of it, but he wasn't as deep in the restaurant scene as say Gordon Ramsay was. So he's got a little bit of a different mentality and philosophy about it.
Right.
Jamie Oliver played to the home chef and the home cook.
Right.
Where Gordon Ramsay played to the professional chef.
Right.
So you had two different paths, basically.
Right.
So, I was never a really huge Jamie Oliver fan until I saw his Italian series when he went to Italy.
Right.
Which I thought was really good, because I remember one scene he was sitting on the curb and he was sitting there after having a bunch of Italian nonas take him through like pasta and everything, and he sat on the curb, and I think he said something like, "I know nothing about Italian food."
Yeah.
And I thought that was really genuine, because it was a real moment. You could see on his face that he was half embarrassed and half just crushed and disappointed.
Yeah.
That he thought he knew Italian food.
Yeah.
And then after this scene that he went through, he was just like beside himself.
Right.
Which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, honest.
Yeah, very honest and genuine.
Yeah.
So at that point I was like, I don't mind genealogy.
Yeah, yeah, and then you're always learning something, and you go to any grandma,
Always.
a German grandma, Italian grandma, Japanese grandma, she's going to school you on.
Yeah, you know, at cooking, at the end of your life, you probably have enough knowledge to fill your pinky finger.
Yeah.
And that's it, because no matter where you go, you start from scratch. You have it's like an Etchy sketch.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you might know Italian or you might know Greek or whatever. You go to Thailand, you're back to ground zero.
Yeah.
You know nothing in terms of ingredients, techniques.
Yeah, like all these vegetables, like an eggplant that looks...
pea eggplants and all this type of stuff that they use. You know, completely different set of ingredients.
Yeah.
But it's very humbling.
Yes.
Because you think you know a lot.
Yes.
And then you realize you don't really know that much.
No.
And that's when I think you kind of come of age as a chef, when you understand that you really don't know that much.
And I'm here to learn, maybe.
Yeah.
And not kind of teach so much. Now, my last question for you, and I'm sure we're going to agree on the answer. What is your opinion on this whole Uber Eats and takeout food all the time, where no one's going out?
It's hurting the industry for sure.
No one's going out for dinner anymore.
Yeah. That's a complicated question.
And then also, when you get the food, it, like you said, it's aging. So
it's never, takeout food is takeout food.
Yeah.
It's never going to be the quality of eating in a restaurant.
But they're even, you got all these steakhouses that are doing takeout now. It's like,
well, they have to. They're not doing it because they want to. This is the problem with all this takeout Uber Eats.
Yeah.
It's changed the industry.
Yeah.
And people now have to do it to survive. Otherwise, they're not going to make the bottom line. It's just that simple.
But then
takeout's become a huge part. Where before, delivery, has become a massive part.
Yeah.
Where before, you go back 20, 15, 20, 30 years, delivery was like pizzas. That's all you ever got. Pizza, Chinese food, that's all you ever got. But now everybody is delivering.
Yeah. And
the market is just getting so saturated that everyone's fighting for that last dollar just to kind of make it.
To make something.
And the rent industry is very hard now because costs are driving up to the roof. Staffing, minimum wage is going up to the roof. It's becoming expensive. Rent is going up. Taxes are going up. Since COVID, all the pricing on everything has gone up. Like, have you seen a bottle of olive oil today?
Yeah.
1 liter of olive oil is like $20.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So how do you absorb those costs without passing them along to the customer?
Right.
And it's hard because the customer will never really understand. They always think of why are you raising your prices?
Yeah.
Why are you raising your prices?
Yeah.
It's because my margins are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and if I don't, I'm eating those costs, and it's not sustainable.
And I want to keep the level.
You have to keep the percentage where it's healthy, where everybody's happy, where the guest is getting good quality for what they're paying for, and the restaurant is able to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like I said, it's not sustainable.
No, it's like a charity.
Yeah.
And then what are your future plans?
Can I talk about that?
If you want to.
Yeah, I'm heading to. Right now, I'm doing a couple of consultation projects.
Right.
One for a Japanese restaurant for a sake program, and one for a health and wellness resort up in Siem Reap.
Right.
Start that literally on Monday.
Okay.
And that's up until March, and then March 15th, I head to Italy, to Sicily.
Okay.
For 7 months for a seasonal position, executive chef and B at a Sicilian resort there.
Oh, wonderful.
Wine resort called Capofatto.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not big on social media, but if you happen to run into Michael somewhere in the world, you'll be there.
I'll be there,
because you're all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no plans for your own kind of restaurant somewhere, or?
I don't know.
Who knows?
Never say never, but no.
No.
In the immediate future, no.
No. Yeah, because it's kind of...
It's, you know what, this industry's become really hard.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of chefs that are in it are, the mental health aspect is entering it because of the stress that they're going through. They're working ridiculous hours. They have no life.
No.
You work 15, 16, 17 hours a day. And what you get back, besides the gratification and satisfaction in terms of monetary, is very little.
Right.
And there's only so long you can do that.
Right.
And
a lot of chefs are living for Mondays because most restaurants
are closed on Mondays.
But
then again, I worked, countless jobs where I worked 7 days a week. There was no day off.
Right.
Your day off was a catch-up day.
Right.
It was hit the markets, it was do the books, it was whatever you needed to do to get ahead.
Right.
So it's just it's a relentless.
It's like a cycle.
It's a vicious cycle.
And even when you're off,
Yeah.
you're thinking.
Oh, you're never
off.
You're never off. Your brain's always 100 miles an hour.
Working on the new menu
and you could wake up 3 o'clock in the morning with just something in your head that you forgot or something
Right.
you need to do.
Right.
Especially if you're working in a very large venue or a venue, a resort that has multiple venues.
Right.
Where you're responsible for so much.
Right.
It's just the stress but it takes a certain type of person to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And to do it for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got to keep your passion for the cooking and just kind of go where it takes you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it has been wonderful to meet you, sir.
Thank you very much.
And good to meet another Canadian.
Yeah, always.
In a strange part of the world.
Yeah.
And good luck with your future ventures and your adventures.
Yeah.
So this, I think, is not our first chef, but our first Canadian chef here on Culture Talk and Tours. Great to meet you, sir.
You as well.
And we will see you on the next episode.
Bye.